Unpacking social dynamics. In this presentation, we'll explore key social theories, conflict theory, queer theory, and intersectionality, and how they intersect in real life. Through insights from Alex's personal experiences, we'll connect these theories to the complexities of identity, power, and social dynamics. This presentation will analyze Alex's experiences and perspectives through the lenses of conflict theory, queer theory, and intersectionality. It will explore not only family dynamics, identity, and societal challenges, but also reflect on how, despite positive societal changes, individuals continue to be marginalized. Conflict theory suggests that those in power aim to maintain their authority through control and subjection, often without seeking agreement or cooperation from others. This dynamic can contribute to inequality and societal conflict. Macro level focuses on large-scale societal conflicts, such as struggles between social classes, nations, or economic systems. Micro level examines smaller scale conflicts, like those within families or personal relationships, that can also reflect larger societal issues. One thing to take note on conflict theory, it suggests that if it's either macro level or micro level, there will always be conflict. Conflict is unavoidable. But within that conflict, there are ways to manage it, and if managed effectively, it can have positive outcomes. Niccolo Machiavelli and Thomas Hobbes believed humans are driven by self-interest and greed, which leads to conflict. They argued that laws and social contracts are necessary to maintain order and balance individual needs with societal stability. Karl Marx, known as the father of conflict theory, focused on how economic and social inequalities create conflict, especially over scarce resources. He applied Hegel's dialectic process, where opposing forces clash, eventually leading to a new societal order. Max Weber examined how legitimate authority and institutionalized power help maintain social order and stability, often benefiting dominant groups while subordinating others. Louis Kosser suggested that conflict can serve several functions, including uniting groups, creating alliances, and driving social change. He also believed conflict helped release built-up tension, making social structures more flexible and adaptable. Social structures such as race, class, gender, and other categories create hierarchies that benefit certain groups while disadvantaging others. This leads to competition for resources, which can have damaging psychological and social effects, including diminished self-esteem and increased marginalization for the disadvantaged group. Conflict theory argues that conflict is not inherently bad, as it can lead to social progress, transformation, and positive change. By challenging existing power structures, conflict encourages compromise, adaptation, and solidarity within groups, ultimately fostering social change. Queer theory challenges traditional binary views of sexuality and social norms, especially in the context of family studies with a particular focus on LGBT families. It highlights the importance of acknowledging and representing the diverse range of sexual identities and experiences. Intersectionality explores how different social categories like race, class, and gender overlap to create complex systems of both oppression and privilege. Queer theory argues that gender and sexual identities are not fixed or strictly defined, but rather exist on a spectrum. People's identities and behaviors can change over time, and they cannot be fully understood using simplistic categories like male, female, or heterosexual, homosexual. Queer theory challenges the idea that there are only two clear opposite options for understanding human nature, emphasizing instead that human experiences are much more complex and diverse. Research has shown that there's little evidence supporting the idea, for example, that children need both a mother and father to thrive, as studies such as those by Golmock found no differences in child outcomes between gay fathers and lesbian mothers. This suggests that gender of parents does not significantly affect children's mental health. Queer theory critically examines heteronormativity, which is the belief that heterosexual relationships are traditional gender roles and are the normal or preferred way of living. It also critiques the idea that these norms should define how people behave, especially within families. Queer theory argues that this ideology affects all families, but it is especially harmful for LGBT families. LGBT parents, for example, often experience widespread prejudice and discrimination because their family structures do not align with the traditional heterosexual gender-conforming ideals that society views as correct. Queer theory originated in 1990s from a feministic and post-structuralist perspectives. It has questions that are conventional ideas about gender and sexuality, inspired by thinkers such as Judith Butler. It calls for deconstruction of societal norms around identity and highlights the fluidity of gender and sexual categories. Queer theory also reveals the power dynamics that influence the creation and maintenance of gender and sexual hierarchies. Sex does not equal gender. Sex is the specific biological characteristics, such as chromosomes and reproductive organs, that are typically classified as male or female. Gender, on the other hand, refers to the roles, behaviors, and identities that society considers appropriate for men, women, and other gender identities. Gender is a social and cultural construct, and it can vary across different societies and can be more fluid than the binary concept of male and female. For intersectionality, it emerged from the work of scholars studying the experiences of marginalized racial and ethnic groups. Intersectionality challenges the idea that sexuality is a fixed or singular identity, and instead recognizing the interconnectedness and fluidity of various social factors. During the interview, these were the questions that I asked Alex for conflict theory that I wanted to highlight. For your experience in society, have you experienced or observed any conflicts between different social groups? Alex stated, with the recent changes to gender identity, like transgender identities, non-binary, there's actually a lot of gay people that are saying that there needs to be separation between LGB and the QIA part of the community. I've actually been hearing people talk about how LGB is about who you identify with sexually versus the QIA portion, which is how you identify yourself as a gender. So there is a movement to try and separate that. Have you ever noticed how conflict within communities might mirror larger societal issues like discrimination or unequal treatments? Alex stated, I don't know if you know, but there's a whole court system involved with drag shows. A self-made flag hierarchy among drag performers. Some don't necessarily have to be a part of it, like Drew, he wasn't a part of it. He tries to stay out of it, but his drag mom is a princess of Washington, and she is a part of that hierarchy. And within that, there's a lot of conflict that comes up. It kind of reminds me of politics. Have you seen those in power maintain their control? And what do you think are the consequences for marginalized communities like LGBTQ individuals? Alex stated, the drag court is like a hierarchical system. which has been around for a long time to organize the community. While initially created to manage events, it has shifted to a more political tool, creating power struggles and pushing certain people out. I've witnessed this firsthand, like with a performer who, despite contributing to shows, was excluded due to personal grudges within the system. How have you seen these social structures affect the treatment or opportunities available to you or others in the LGBTQ community, especially in relation to your goal of building a family through adoption? Alex stated, "There's a lot of adoption agencies that are catered to straight people. There is a company that does cater to LGBTQ, and we were looking to go through them. We did an interview process with them, and some of the questions they asked were interesting. One question was, how would you manage a child who was a different race? I told them, well, I am mixed African American race myself, so I'm sure I can figure it out. They said that was great to hear, and they were so excited when I told them that. I did not have a lot of options when looking, and it was surprising how many of these agencies were linked to religion. If we were LGBTQ, a lot of them would not even consider. We did go through most of the process, and interviews went well. They were going to do a walkthrough of our house to make sure we were fit parents to adopt. But when they started talking about what it would cost to adopt, that is what cut us off. It was going to be $30,000 for one child. During the interview, these were the questions that I wanted to highlight regarding queer theory and intersectionality and Alex's responses. How have you experienced or been affected by the ways in which history and societal power structures are taught or represented? Alex stated, "It is not about being gay, but it's about being mixed race, African American. My second grade teacher sent home a black racial book with me as a kid. My mom didn't know about it, but when I got home, I was crying about how horrible they were treated, and there were graphic depictions in the book. My mom was wondering what was going on and went to the teacher to confront her. The teacher told my mom that he needs to know about his past. Heteronormativity, the idea that heterosexual relationships are the norm, often shapes how society views family structures. How do you feel this idea impacts LGBTQ families?" Alex stated, "A lot of times I get questions like, who does the dishes? Who does the laundry? Who cooks in your household?" And I'm like, we both do? We both do everything. We both cook. We both clean. We both do laundry. There is not a gender specific role. And that is something it's normal for so many people. But for me, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like, I can't do dishes because that is a woman's work. Queer theory also suggests that gender and sexual identities exist on a spectrum. Can you share how your own understanding of your identity has evolved over time, and how you navigate fluidity in your own sexual and gender identity within the context of family and marriage? Alex stated, "I think it is a huge thing, especially with the US, that we gender a lot of things, and it doesn't make sense to me. Something else too is I think defining sexuality is not a big deal. A lot of people in the community feel they need to put a label on it, which is fine. I think if you feel a need to put a label on who you are as a person, then that is great. I identify as a cis mixed race gay man, right? But as I have gotten older, well, I know I'm not 100% gay because I have dated women when I was younger and still use women more than men for art projects. But I don't find myself caring. Like, if I need to relabel myself, do I have to figure this out? No, I don't really care. I am just me." How have your experiences in the workplace, especially related to your sexual identity, and as someone who is also mixed race, shaped your perception on how people are treated or positioned in organization? Alex stated, as a gay man, I got into upper management while I was white. I'm also interracial, and I found it interesting because when they would hire people, I noticed a shift in where those people went. I don't know if they intentionally did it or not. I can't really call it out. A lot more of the gay people ended up in my department or over in the lesbian girls department. There was one gay guy. I call him Princess. I made it myself, but it's not a thing that's negative. I call him that, but I joke about it sometimes because I come across those guys and I try, like, I don't give them any different treatment at all. I'm like, you can do the same thing as everybody else. One of the other managers told me they were afraid to say something because he's gay and that could be considered discrimination. Combining both theories, the queer theory and intersectionality, with conflict theory, it gives us a more in-depth analysis of not just Alex's experiences and perspectives, but societies as a whole. Queer theory emphasizes that gender and sexual identities are not fixed, but exist on a spectrum. Alex's evolving understanding of his identity, identifying as a cis mixed race gay man, but acknowledging past relationships with women, reflects this fluidity. Queer theory challenges the pressure to label or define sexuality rigidly, which resonates with Alex's comfort in rejecting the need to relabel himself. This perspective on identity helps us understand Alex's rejection of heteronormative expectations. His relationship, where both partners share responsibilities equally, reflects queer theory's challenge to fixed gendered roles. Additionally, intersectionality examines how overlapping social identities, like race, gender, and sexuality, interact to shape unique experiences of privilege and oppression. Alex's experiences as a gay mixed race man in upper management reflects the complexities of navigating multiple identities. He noticed subtle ways in how LGBTQ individuals were positioned within his workplace, suggesting that race and sexual identity can impact career future success. Alex's struggle with limited adoption agency options due to both his LGBTQ identity and race further highlight the intersectional barriers he faces. The agency's excitement about his mixed race background and his willingness to adopt a child with a different race than white is contrasted with the systematic challenges posed by agencies that are often tied to religious or heteronormative values, which might limit acceptance of LGBTQ parents. By combining queer theory and intersectionality with conflict theory, we can see how Alex's experiences are shaped not just by his sexual identity, but also by his racial identity and the broader societal structures that influence both. His navigation of power structures, from his workplace to adoption processes, is shaped by the intersection of his race and sexuality. Combining these theories reveal how societal systems can enforce rigid roles, while also showing the fluidity of identities and the complexity of how power operates within different social spheres. The drag court example reflects this as well. While it originally served to organize the community, it has shifted into a hierarchical power structure, mirroring larger societal struggles for power and representation, particularly within marginalized groups like LGBTQ individuals. In conclusion, fostering environments that allow individuals to express true selves openly and without judgment arises only from understanding. Here is a great quote from the interview I conducted with Alex.
I feel like a lot more people would I feel like society would do better to not put gender on things that literally have nothing to do with gender, whether that be household chores or even clothing, for heaven's sakes. Like I've bought I bought a cardigan, this really nice like green cardigan that I wear all the time, and it was a men's shirt, like a men's cardigan that came on, like I got it on Amazon, and all the time women love it, and men think it looks like it's a woman's cardigan, and I'm like, I don't care. It has no gender to me. It's just a cardigan.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating how society puts, gender on items and on what people do. Using queer theory and intersectionality with conflict theory together allows us to better understand Alex's complex experiences, especially how societal structures influence sense of self and treatment by others. These theories help us to see that identity is fluid and shaped by intersecting factors of race and sexuality, while also exposing how power structures can both support and undermine marginalized communities like LGBTQ individuals.